Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. Hi, it's me. I'm the guy, it's me. How's everyone doing? I see there's a lot of, I see it's maybe taking a second for it to update, but yeah, I'm here. I did it. I made it. Hi. It's me, Tristan, a person who used to be a content creator on the internet. How's it going? I feel like I used to have like an opening spiel that I would do, but I feel like I've lost it over time. Hi. Is everyone having a good Friday night? Um, anyways, yeah, my name's Tristan. I'm the host of the YouTube channel Step Back, and I also am the co-host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens, in case you don't know who I am. And despite the fact that my, life has been utter insanity, I continue to be alive, and I defiantly refuse to quit doing content as a thing. So I'm working on how do I what should I like I'm like I know like there's like there's like 20 people here, and I'm pretty sure I know most of you. So I'm like, how much of an introduction actually needs to be in order? But yeah. Um gosh, what am I doing with my life? My name's Tristan. I used to be a really like full-time content creator. I'm no longer a full-time content creator. I'm now a content creator as side gig type person. And now, every month or so, I decided to do a stream to just like. You sound out of breath. Are you all right? I'm just a little like a little stuffed up. Is all. Um, yeah. So what I've been up to. The thing is, I can't really say what I've been up to because I have a job. I do my job. I go home. I go to bed, and then I do more job. Um, I don't know. It's a good job, but I did a I think I mentioned in the last stream I did an improv class with my newfound like money to do things with. Um, I have been like I've been enjoying having positive money in my bank account for the first time ever. Do I at least work from home? Partially. I what's it called? I got started. I have a job that is 3 days at the office, 2 days at home. Um, so and it just has like a bunch of like random meetings and stuff like that too. So sometimes I have to go to like random events on the weekends that are like at different parts of the city, or like you know I have to go to like like random places for like improv, like not improv, like I have to go to like random like meetings that are like after hours at like hidden places and stuff. Luckily though, my the office I do work at is walking distance from my house, so it's not too bad to get to or anything like that. So that's fun. And it's on all the nuts and bolts on like doing the job every day. It's a pretty good job. It's pretty good. I just do communication stuff. I make lots of social media posts and write lots of emails and go to a lot of meetings. You love that shirt? Oh, you have that shirt in red. Ah, yes, I am a very big fan of this shirt. I kind of want to buy another one of them. I like it a lot. I should buy more fun shirts. That's probably not what I should be doing with my money. But yeah, I did. I did have one fun interaction where I was in like this big meeting of like other organizations like the one that I'm in. And we were having like a discussion about like some stuff. It was like one of those like really big Zoom calls where there's like 60 people. And then I get like a message, like one of those like Zoom private messages from somebody, and the person's like, "Yo, are you do I know you from YouTube?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was just like, "Oh no," because I'm trying to, because my form of political activism and like my my takes on the internet are not necessarily something that I want to be reflective of the organization that I work for. So I try to, anyways, keep some degree of separation between my content creation life and my work life. And then when I get another random email or get a random PM from somebody on Zoom that's like, "I know you from YouTube," and I'm like, "Oh, geez, okay." Not to mention that I didn't realize, but I probably should have, that in my capacity of my work, I'm getting quoted in the news a lot, or I'm getting like my name cited in the press every so often. Not all the time, but I've been working at this job now for 3.5 months, and I've already been in the newspaper twice. So I'm just guessing that it's going to be a regular occurrence in some capacity, and that's going to make my SEO look really weird in a few months, in a year or two, or something like that, which I think is kind of amusing. Yeah. But other than that, I've been I have a video. That's something that you guys should know about. So I have a video that I just finished. Actually, this next video is, what's it called? The next video that I have is done. I handed it to an editor. That's one of the things that I'm doing now. I sent it to an editor. The editor sent it back to me. I had some notes. He fixed them, but I haven't taken a look at the fixed version yet. But I imagine that once I watch it, which I might do tonight, I will give it the thumbs up, and then it will go up on Nebula/Patreon pretty soon afterwards. And then I actually have a thing. I have a sponsor for November. So what I might do is I'll release it soon, probably in the next, depending upon how well the editor, Cade the editor, how well I like the version that he sent me. If there's no other things that need to be done and I like it and it's good to go, I'll put it up on Nebula/Patreon, and those people will have an ad-free version of the video. Then I have to record the sponsorship segment and get that approved by the sponsor and all that kind of stuff. And that then I can probably organize it to come out on November 1st or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I know that they want it for November specifically, and if I have the video done out to people in the next day or two, then I might as well just get it ready for November 1st, right? Yeah. And then I have to make a decision after that about what I'm going to do after that, because I have two minds, and I don't know which thing I want to go down. And maybe you guys can give me some advice. I don't know. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that I'm at, right? Some of you might know that I had that right before I kind of stopped doing full-time content creation, I was thinking of doing a RPG YouTube channel that was going to dovetail into a bunch of different projects that I was kind of working on back last spring. And one of the things was going to be starting a RPG YouTube channel that was going to be a sort of mix of something that I didn't think I had seen in the space, in the, like the YouTube space yet, which was like video essays, but video essays on a topic, like video essays on tabletop. Because I felt like that was like a genre of video. Like there was like, there was like already content about like, there's already like media stuff about movies and video games, and I thought that tabletop needed something like that. So I was going to work on something in that capacity. And the thing is, before I stopped, I actually was like reasonably deep in the research of a video. Like I have I think I have like good amount of notes for a video that is already like good to go. And at this point now, like I could, like, since I have an editor, right, I could always just write the script, film the video, hand it to the editor, and sort of go from there, right? But the thing is that that's not a video that I think would actually like, that Step Back would necessarily be a great channel to put on. But and if I were to hire an editor to edit the video, it would be like editors are expensive, so I would need to have like a sponsor on the video that would probably be at least a few $100 in order to be able to make the video profitable in any capacity. But so I have to figure out whether I think that's worth it or not. Or the other option is that I have a new-ish topic for a video that I wanted to make, that I could just dive into that and just kind of cut my losses with the RPG video. That's sort of the thing that I'm at. Paying people is expensive. This is true. To kind of give you an idea of what the video was going to be about, so you have an idea. Yeah, Legal Kimchi is an example of the kind of channel that I was going to be doing. That was sort of the idea I was going to go for. Legal Kimchi is a really good YouTube channel that is exactly the kind of thing that I was thinking about. But the video that I was going to work on, or that I was going to make for this channel, was about S&M, actually. So one of the things about the TTRPG YouTube space, or about TTRPGs, like that's like a big like discourse on the internet, is this concept of consent and safety tools. So like, I don't know how many people are plugged into TTRPGs or TTRPG discourse, but like one of the things that's probably like one of the more like large things that has like moved into the space in the last like few decades was this like development of systems of safety tools, because like you don't know what kind of places people are coming from. You don't know if they've got like phobias, if they've got like all sorts of traumas, PTSD. There's all, or just like not exactly interested in exploring like really dark types of content. And in the past, no one really did anything about that, but now in more recent-ish times, like, in the last, like, maybe 15 years or so, we've been talking about doing things like during session zeros, trying to have having more things where, before you ever play the game, you set expectations, you figure out what kind of things you want to, really dive into, how much stuff you really want to, like, only describe, but not necessarily get into the nitty gritty of, and like, what kinds of like things. And then having like also the tools so that if something happens where someone doesn't feel comfortable, they can step away, or you can like reframe the situation or something like that. Pretty normal stuff. And people have responded to it by being giant whiny babies talking about how like the RPGs have gone woke, And that pissed me off. And so this person, like, there was this tweet that got really, like, infamously viral in the TTRPG space, where somebody had posted this checklist. Let me see if I can find it. I doubt I can, but let me see. Let me see if I can get this for you. All right. See if I can find the thing I'm looking for. That was used. I think this is... Here it is. Yeah. Let me get it all in big... Okay, so here. So this is the RPG consent checklist, right? So, like... This is like a form that you would give to your players, right? And you would have, like, you know, your name, and the thing is, like, yeah, like, what rating would you want to be if it was a video, if it was a movie, and then, like, you know, things that might show up in a lot of horror situations that you can write, whether you're, like, you know, enthusiastically on board for, okay, if it's, like, you know, alluded to but not done, or a hard line, do not include, and, like, a bunch of, like, common things, right? Like, that could come up. Like, if you don't really, like, set out expectations, things like, yeah, like, sex between player characters, as an example, could make some people unhappy. Or things like self-harm, sexual assault, like the kinds of things that, you know, people might have, like, you know, like psychological hang-ups about for, like, very understandable reasons. And people bitched about that. Somebody posted that exact checklist that I showed you, and was basically whining that was, like, if somebody brought this to my table, I would never want to play with them. And I was like, that's stupid. Because, like, so the video was supposed to be about, like, how these kinds of safety tools, like, they were talking about how this is going to limit the kinds of things that you can do, because you have to keep everything safe to make sure nobody's triggered or whatever. But what I was arguing is that setting out these expectations beforehand actually opens the door for you to go to even darker places, or to explore more, like, you know, to allow the genre of or allow, like, you know, these kinds of stories to go into more like interesting and deep scenarios. Because if everybody is on board with, like, you know, saying, like, PC on PC romance, then that's a story that you can explore without worrying about people feeling uncomfortable with it or something like that. And I argued that. And then I said, like, the ultimate example of this is the fact that a lot of these safety tools were borrowed directly from the BDSM community. Because the BDSM community do something basically just like that. And so, in the process of making that video, I talked to several dominatrixes. Like, I interviewed at least in video format. I've interviewed one dominatrix. I then did a sort of text interview with a different one. And then I also did a different interview. I was working on doing an interview with one of the creators of Apocalypse World, who is also a sex educator. And also, I had a friend. Like, if I were to pursue this, I would chase up these interviews. I also had a friend who was... she's like a PhD student who studies sex worker. Like, she studies sex workers, like, as, like, a sort of anthropological group, or, like, as media creators. And she knew a dominatrix that that might have been willing to talk to me for the project. And I was also in some talks with the actual person. I was actually in talks with one of the people who made that checklist I showed you earlier. And, you know, the research, I did a bunch of research. And maybe I should, like, keep working on that, I guess. I don't know. I did a lot of legwork to make that video happen, and it feels like I've got some pretty deep sunken cost fallacy. But I also am concerned that if I, like, do all this research and then the video comes out, like, I even spent money. Like, I bought I had a thumbnail made for it. Let me see if I can find the thumbnail for it. Yeah. It's loading right now. There we go. So I had this thumbnail commissioned for the video, which is pretty great. I gotta say, I was pretty happy with this this thumbnail. Here, I'll just put it back. And I did a bunch of research, but I'm like, this was like a video very well made for a YouTube channel that it's not step back. Like, this does not feel like a step back video. So two things come to mind for me specifically, which is one, do I, like, there's like three options, right? There's like, one, I realize that I'm doing a bit of a sunken cost fallacy, and I should just, I made this for a YouTube channel that was that never came true, and that I should just drop it. The second option would be to release the video as it was, and it will probably not do super well, and it will not do super well on Step Back, because it's like, not the kind of thing that people are expecting on Step Back. But kind of leaning into the fact that I'm no longer doing YouTube full time, I don't really, like, my ability to pay bills doesn't depend on the video doing well. Although if I get a sponsor for it, it could, like, very well underperform on a sponsorship, and that could be really bad. Or at least it could be, like, not great. But if I don't do that, then, then I would be paying an edit. I would either have to edit it myself, which would be very time consuming, or I'd have to pay an editor, which would be expensive, especially if I don't have a sponsorship for the video, or if yeah. So I don't know. The other option is to I guess, like, there's option C, which is, because I've only been doing the research and I haven't actually, like, written the script yet, that it's not unimaginable for me to say, look at the research I've done so far and decide that maybe there's, like, there's an alternative video that is a step back video from the research that I did, and sort of retool it into a step back video, which would probably require, dropping another $80 on a new thumbnail, but it might be a wave thing. Adam and Eve sponsorship. I did an Adam and Eve sponsorship a long time ago, and I don't think I didn't result. Nobody. I don't think anybody used it to buy a bunch of sex toys using the step back code. So I don't imagine it did I don't think it did very well, is the thing. So, that's the thing I have in mind at the moment. I have to think about it. Part of me thinks that I should just do the video, don't have a sponsor, or just do, like, a Nebula thing, like a Nebula sponsorship. And kind of just release it. Wasn't that during COVID? I think my what's it called? My Adam and Eve sponsorship was in September of 2022. 2022, I want to say. Or, yeah, September of 2022, I think is when I got it. That was when I like first joined Nebula. Or it was September of 2021. It was September of 2021, actually. I remember this now because it was my video I did for the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which maybe is, a thing. But yeah, maybe I could think about, I think maybe the option I kind of want to go with is just, spend the $300 or $400 or $500 or however much it would cost, and just either release the video. There's two things I could do. With it. One, I could release the video as like a Nebula exclusive or like a Nebula / Patreon exclusive, and then use that as a sort of like selling point in a bunch of sponsorship spots I do. But, that would be a lot of work for an exclusive video that then just sits on, a small proprietary social, which, might not be too bad, but I don't know how much of a draw my BDSM D&D video would be. Or just release it. Yeah, Nebula / Patreon exclusive might be a cool thing to do, and then I could talk about it in my my next Patreon spot. But it's also a lot of time to spend that then wouldn't be spent on something that would actually go out on the Step Back channel, and I want to make. I already spend. After this video is done, I'm going to be editing a bunch of episodes of the podcast, which will then be coming out. And then after that, it'll be the next video. So, That's a board meeting me person to figure out, and then the video after that I have another idea for a video to have right after that too, and it is another video that I'm like, it's a thing. What I'll say is, I have the next video that is not this video, the one that I have just been imagining to do after this video's done, is very much in the space. Okay, I'm trying to think how to talk about it. It's the kind of thing that you guys who are engaged Step Back fans would like, but I have a really hard time trying to sell it to a primarily American audience. Because it's a subject that has very little to do with the United States. In fact, it has very little to do with the Anglosphere, which is, English-speaking countries, which is not a thing which is almost my entire viewer base. But it's a thing that I have been ranting about to basically everybody who will listen to me over the last few months, as this is a thing that is one of the most important global trends happening right now. One of the most I think that people don't realize that there is a huge demographic shift that's going to happen in the world over the next 5 or 6 decades that is going to fundamentally change the power balance of the world. And it's a specific type of change that Canada, if we were so inclined, could, if it embraced certain things, would really, really, could really benefit from. Really benefit. So the problem, though, is that it would be tough to it's tough to build a way to sell it that the Americans would like. And so, like, that's the next video that I kind of want to... That's the other video that I kind of want to do that I'll get to at some point. But I can run through the basics with you right now. So you guys can maybe give me pointers if you think if there's a way that I can make this interesting to Americans. It's okay, yeah. Are you talking about UBI? No. Okay. So here's the start. If you look at like population trends in countries, right? Like every country has, like, if you look through history, you will see a very typical pattern that shows up in history. There is this period, like they're kind of like slow increase in population through agricultural economies. Then a point hits where they get industrialized and they start developing industrial agriculture, have a more industrial economy, things like that happen. And you can see this because all of like the standards of living start to improve. Or at least like, the metrics, things that like help with like longevity, things that help with like a bunch of stuff happen. And whoa, the population goes fucking out of control. And then once like the industrialization fully penetrates the country and the people in the country start moving into industrial work, but then once the industrial work starts to move towards service sector economies, you start seeing that you require, like the population requires more and more and more education. And so every kid becomes more and more and more of an investment. And you start seeing like every kid starts becoming like a really expensive project because you have to like put them through university if they want to compete in the current economy. And what happens is like the population growth starts to slow down and even start to go down. And this seems to be a fairly normal thing that like countries go through as far as their population goes. Canada is already like below replacement when it comes to population growth or birth population growth. Japan is, I think, the example of this. And countries that are sort of at this point, they only really grow their populations through immigration. That's, to me, I like you might hear like, Nazis or something say this like it's a bad thing. It's just a normal thing that countries do as they sort of economically develop. So, what's going on right now is that the countries that we are currently obsessed with is the countries that are currently that we are currently obsessed with, the ones that are growing really fast, China and India, right? Because India especially has a massive population growth happening right now because they're going through this process. They've been going through this process for the last few decades. But China's a little bit further ahead, but India is going to get to the point not too far in the future where their industrial economy is going to start to mature and turn into a more service-focused economy. And eventually, and I think that India is already experiencing this somewhat, but people in the country are starting to require more and more education in order to participate in the economy and benefit, and like that kind of stuff is already starting to happen, and India's population growth will start to slow down at a certain point. In fact, there's a lot of like gender-based struggle happening in India that is kind of related to this, because as that curve starts happening, one of the things is that the women start to advocate for better birth control, family planning, abortion rights, those kinds of things. And India is having a struggle against its conservative, its conservative. The conservative part of its cultural elements are sort of struggling against that, and that's a big thing happening in India right now. So when India and China over the next maybe 10, 20 years are going to have their population growth really cool down. China is already experiencing its population cooling down, or its population growth is already cooling down a lot. That's happening in South Korea. This is happening in a lot of countries. You don't think that service economies are necessarily inevitable? The way that it happens in the U.S. is highly dependent on the Reagan administration. Potentially. There is there is an angle to this where it's like industrialization, like post-industrial economies are kind of dependent on shifting industrialization away to another country that then is going through this process. And China, for the West to kind of go through it, they had to move all of their industrialization over to China. And then China went through it. And now China's kind of going to slow down. And they're going to move their industrialization out to somewhere else. But I do think that maybe there will be like a sort of a point hit where like a lot of like... Basically just what happens is that once like an industrial economy develops to a certain point, at some point, the like dollars per person starts to make less sense, and then it incentivizes more automation and incentivizes like other things, and especially because like I know that there's like right now there's like a really big phase change happening when it comes to like factory and warehouse workers and like these like insane robots that are about to hit the market. Not like the fucking one that like Elon Musk was showing off, but there has been some like other companies that are not Elon Musk have been making some like really big breakthroughs with like humanoid robot stuff, and there is some very interesting stuff to move. Nuntius Mortis, you're reading ahead. You're reading ahead. So, but yeah, you're on the right track. So here's the big thing that's going to happen, is that the next part of the country. The next, like, sort of part of the world that is going to experience this industrialized penetration and, like, massive population growth is in sub-Saharan Africa. No particular country is, like, going to be heavily hit by it, but it's very obvious that, like, the big winner right now is Nigeria. But there are many countries that are poised to experience this population explosion as their economy sort of comes online, industrial economy comes online over the next few decades. And so if you look at like studying of like population trends and industrialization and economic development over the next like 40, 50 years, almost all of the population growth in the world is going to be happening in sub-Saharan Africa. It's gonna be big. Like there's a lot. Like the current concept is that the population of the Earth is going to probably peak at around 9 billion before all is said and done. We're at 8 billion now, so there's going to be another billion people put in the world. Plus, you also have to factor for the declining populations of other countries. So that many people are going to be born in fucking all over the world, but like there's going to be a huge amount of those people born in sub-Saharan Africa. And you might think there's a fuckload of languages in sub-Saharan Africa, but I'll tell you one thing, and this is like the important part that like why I think this is like a really big deal, and like what where like the big power shift is going to come, is that you're immediately, because we live in the Anglosphere, what we see in the news is Nigeria. We see Nigeria taking off and being a big player. But the places that are really going to take off on top, are the countries around Nigeria. And these countries are, and Nigeria itself. But like, it's the idea is that Nigeria is going to grow, but there's a bunch of other countries that we don't think about in the Anglosphere that are also going to take off. And they are countries with names like Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Liberia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, like further down south, Botswana, these countries. And they speak like dozens, thousands of local languages. But they do have one language that everybody gets educated in if they want to get involved in international business. And that language is French. And it is suspected that by about 2080, the most spoken language on Earth might be French. And specifically, French of not so much with the Académie Française style, but like this sort of developing, which is what's developing right now, is a sort of like African vernacular French. It's not like it doesn't follow the rules of the Académie Française, but it isn't like hyper local to be unintelligible to other people. So there's like a common African French that is developing slowly right now. And so the suspicion is that in like 2080, French might be like the language of business. It might be like the most important language going on right now. And there's a thing that Canada specifically can benefit from in this, and that is that Canada is a rich Western country that is in the Francophonie, but isn't France. Because a lot of these countries, they speak French because they were brutally colonized by either France or Belgium. And Canada is a French-speaking country, part of the Francophonie, that is rich, but is not France and is not Belgium. And Canada is a country that, Canada is a country that is like, so it's a wealthy Western country. It's a close American ally. It's part of the Francophonie. We have, our politicians and our business elite, or some of our business elite, are French speaking. And it would be like we have lots of public resources that exist to teach our citizens French. And in Canada, we're already seeing a large increase in Francophone immigration outside of Quebec. Because it's a very funny thing, which is the Francophonie actually has Canada as a member and Quebec as a member, which is very funny. But either way, Francophone non-Quebecois immigration to Canada is on the increase. And the federal government is doing a lot of work to make the rest of the country, Ontario specifically, at least in the context that I know, more friendly for French immigrants. And a lot of those French immigrants are coming from sub-Saharan Africa. And Canada, if it wants to be a relevant country in the next few decades, is going to need to have a huge amount of immigration because domestic, population growth is currently in the negative, and so we're going to need to have a lot of immigrants in Canada if we're going to maintain any sort of population growth and keep our economy functioning in this sort of system. So, and we've done some pretty terrible things. I'm not going to lie. But it does mean that, if we see a future where, the economic center of power is in, sub-Saharan Africa, Canada, if we embrace that identity and, had more people learn French and, accepted a lot more, Francophone immigrants and, had, closer relations with these countries like Mali, like Sierra Leone, like Congo, Canada could stand to be a relevant country in the sort of post-English future, which is very interesting, and that's why I'm really adamantly going to try to teach my son French, and that's just kind of part of the process, and so that's what this video is about, right? Is that whole thing that I just said to you? That's what the video is about, and then I was going to explore how these French-speaking African countries have reckoned with the fact that a colonial language is the sort of unifier that they can use, and the whole thing about how the French is unlike English, French is okay. I'll give you guys a little bit of things about language policy here, but French as a language, right, is weird. It's a profoundly weird language. And one of the major things that French is dealing with as a language is that the proper way for it to be written and the way that it is spoken in vernacular are drifting out of sync with each other. the average person who speaks French speaks a very different way from how they write. And writing in proper French is a very complex and needlessly complex problem. Like, French has like 19 verb tenses. You have like people like conjugating verbs is like really complicated. It has a bunch of weird rules that are very like anachronistic in a lot of ways. Like the number system, for example. That's a really good example. Like so in French, you would say like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 1 to 10. Then you get you know, 11, 12, 13, 14. Like you get through like, you know, like the teens. But then you get to when you get to like 70, right? So the French word for 60 is soixante. The French word for 70 is soixante-dix, which translates to 60-10. Then 80 in French is 80. 80 roughly directly translates to 420. And then 90 is 90, 420-10. And so, yeah, so like 99 in French is 99, which means 420-19. Which is very bad. It's luckily, like, the Belgians and the Swiss have invented the words, you know, septante, octante, neufante to make, you know, the language more usable, but it's not part of proper French. And I keep saying proper French because, and this is like a thing that like Anglophones don't experience, but French actually has rules. French has the Académie Française. It is an actual organization that actually exists in France. And their whole rule is to be the arbiters of the French language. They tell you what is right and what is wrong in French. German also has something like this. But German's version of it is a lot more chill. Like, in fact, German's version of it is focused around German being a useful language. So when Germany updates, they tend to update stuff to be more inclusive and more, like, you know, to make more sense. French does not. The Académie Française is known for being very conservative in changes. They're very reluctant to add new words, which is to the point now where French has roughly 125,000 words in its lexicon, while English has north of 500,000. And it keeps insisting upon this, like, extremely Byzantine, like, grammar system that is very out of date with how people speak for the most part. And this is, the thing that's happening is that in the future, and we're already seeing this, the signs of this, is that the Académie Française is going to lose some of its cachet when, like, a lot of the French-speaking countries are actively disregarding the authority of France. You might have heard a little bit about this, where in the Sahara, what the hell's that region called? Do you know what this is? If anyone remembers the term, it's the Sahel. The Sahel, that's it. So the Sahel, which is this, like, region that I'm kind of talking about right now, that is, like, Saharan, like, countries that basically have the Sahara in it. And a lot of them are, like, French-speaking countries. I'm looking like Mali, Niger, Chad, like, they're all having, like, coups right now because a lot of their, like, entrenched leadership was loyal to France, because France still gets, like, actively involved in their foreign, like, actively, like, intervenes in these countries still. And that is changing. Like these, they're basically, like, rejecting French, like France is fucking with them. And so this is like a major change that's happening in that region. And one of the things that could come out of it is that if they're going to resume, like keep using French as their, de facto language of business and international trade and stuff, that they could move towards a different type of French. And this is happening right now, which is a development of a sort of vernacular French that is what's it called, descriptive rather than prescriptive. There's like a legitimate like movement to make a new version of French that, in defiance of the Académie Française, is designed to be descriptive rather than prescriptive. And in doing so, you might end up with like a new dialect of French being developed that is probably a lot easier to learn and probably like a lot more adaptive to changing circumstances and stuff. And that will probably be like the language of like the 2080s, And that's like a major change that I think is going to happen. And yeah, this is kind of the thing that like I am, and by 2080, most French speakers, like something to the degree of like 80% of the world's French speakers, are going to be living in Africa. So they will be the ones dictating what French is, not like France. And that is all of this stuff is happening. And it's a thing that I'm like really, really into. And like this is like a thing that I keep telling people about because I won't go into too much detail, but the work that I do now, my job, has to do with immigration. And I am like the person who is constantly beating the drum of like, we need more French support. We need like what's it called? Like very soon, lots of the immigrants who move to our city are going to be Francophones. We need to have good Francophone support for people in this city. And this is the topic I'm like, I need to make a video about this because it is really cool. And there's a bunch of stuff, and there's like, a future, like there's like a lot of like I feel like the kind of people who watch Step Back videos would love like the sort of like discussion of like future politics and like the sort of development of language and all that kind of stuff. The problem is that this whole thing is, the other thing too, is that this is all intertwined with like a very personal story about how my grandmother was a Francophone and didn't pass on French to my mom, and then I did my undergrad in Quebec, and I took an Explorer class, which is like a federal government program for teaching you French. And I tried to learn, I tried to do it, and then, I fell out of practice, so I don't speak it very well. But now I have this son, and I want him to know French because, in 2080, he's going to be like 60. Like, he turned 60 in 2082. So he's going to be alive through all of this. And so French would be like a very useful thing for him to have. And also, compared to like Anglophones, for French people, language is very closely tied to identity. Like, they see language more than bloodline as like a way to determine like whether or not you belong to an ethnicity. And I want to learn French myself and get better at it, and also pass it down to my son. And so there's just like a personal angle to it. So all of that together is a thing. And then, the whole thing though is that I can't think of any way that I can like my audience is over 50% American. I don't know how to sell that idea to an audience, I don't know how to make the thumbnail and title and like the sort of main pitch of the video in something that'll make like the Americans really they'll see it on the, with like the 12 other, thumbnails and be like, oh, I want to watch that one, that specific one I want right now. And so like, that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to, I'm struggling to do with that video because I think it's a really awesome video, but yeah. I think I think somebody sent me some questions to answer. Do I think leftist creators will be particularly affected if Trump wins? Some people have been saying like Robert Evans will have to flee the U.S. But we'll see. We'll see. I know that things don't look good, but I'm actually I'm not very convinced that Trump is going to win the election. I know that it's bad to put yourself out there like that, but yeah. The next question is, how does climate change affect it? Yeah. Yeah, because like a lot of these countries are going to be like right at the center of desertification. I definitely think that they're going to, because they're so like, central to shipping and stuff like that, that they will like the way that they adapt is going to be intense. I think it's good. Like they're gonna find ways to adapt, but it's gonna be intense. Position it as being the U.S. missing out on being made irrelevant. Oh, that could be fun. Yeah. What I think will happen to U.S. cultural output if Trump wins? I think it'll be very similar to what happened during Trump's first administration, honestly. Like, I mean, we'll probably have less of like, I feel like a lot of cultural output from the U.S. in the wake of the first Trump administration was very, what's it called? Was very much about like the sort of shock of Trump becoming president in the first place and dealing with that. Second Trump presidency? I don't know. Do I think there will be humans in Central Africa 56 years from now? Pretty sure it'll be unlivable wasteland. I wouldn't underestimate people's capacity to live in unlivable wasteland if the need be. Yeah. Keep in mind that British is the standard taught outside the Anglosphere, so internationally French might remain the main one for a while. Yeah. I think that like it's like a whole thing about like the whole thing about like how French is like the thing is we don't because we live in the Anglosphere, so we don't see it as much. But like there is an entire like French like Francosphere of like countries with like politics and culture and cinema and like music and all that kind of stuff, and like we don't see that stuff very often because it's not in our language, but like it is a whole thing. There's a whole like mirror, like the kind of stuff that we see, even the countries that we know about and stuff like that are so shaped by the language of the news and everything like that we get that when you want to get news from those places, you have to like have like active people working to cross over. And the French sphere is big. There's a lot of countries that have French as like, if not like the language that they speak, it's like a language that their educated elite speak. So like, even places like Lebanon, Vietnam, what's it called? Cambodia, like all of former French Indochina, basically. But like the DRC, Rwanda, like a whole bunch, like again, all of these countries I'm talking about in Africa, there's a whole thing that once it becomes more Once it becomes more of a thing, then like, figuring out how to pitch it as America being left behind. Yeah. I do think that the Americans would definitely, if you could rage bait it, being like, Americans are going to fail if, like, Americans need to learn French. Why every American should learn French, I feel like, is definitely, like, I feel like there's even some Americans in here that even if you're, even if you're leftist and woke, Americans can't help but try to get a little bit of dig in on the French by coming in here and like being like, nah, fuck them. So definitely think I could do that. Is English going extinct? That'd be a pretty good one. You have a provincial election happening tomorrow? Oh yeah, you live in BC, don't you? I forgot that BC's having an election. I mean, will there be, we can't put LGBT in cinema anymore because Trump's goons might arrest us? I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of things have to happen to get to that state. I think that you're already seeing this happening, where like a lot of LGBT representation has actually been like retreating lately because, not because of like goons, but because they just don't want the backlash from like the Grumses of the world. Like a lot of companies are, like don't want to be branded as woke by like Ron DeSantis or whatever. But I don't know. I think that like this is the thing is like conservatives, what they really want is they want cultural power. They want all of the movies and the TV shows to reflect their opinions. But it never happens. The liberal, like, cause like there's a very, like media has a very progressive sort of like writer base and stuff. But the conservatives have all of the actual political power. But who knows? Like, I feel like, saying that like Trump winning the election will immediately turn America into like fucking 1984, like, there's like, newspeak and everything like that is, what's going to happen is going to be bad. I mean, the last Trump administration was bad, and it's going to be the same, if not worse. But like, it's not going to be like some kind of sci-fi dystopian shit. It's going to suck. It's going to just suck. We'll see. Like, I honestly am, again, I think the Trump campaign is really struggling. Like, I know that like, cause like there's a whole thing where like apparently, conservatives are like intentionally fucking with things like what the hell is that betting market site called? Like the thing that predicts elections through betting markets. That is not doing well. The other thing too, so Trump, like they're fucking with that. They're fucking with like some of the polls because what happened is in 2016, Trump grossly outperformed the polls. So after 2016, a lot of the pollsters sort of changed their predictions as a result of that, right? And so now they give Trump a lot more weight, assuming that he's going to outperform the polls. The thing is that since about 2020, specifically, I think because like the way that pollsters weigh polls is pretty slow, and they haven't really dealt with the fact that like a significant proportion of the Trump voter base died in the pandemic from eating horse paste instead of getting vaccinated. So like a whole million people got erased from the population, and we've never had a situation where a virus killed on political lines so strongly. And so, like, I think a lot of the poll weighting is sort of overcorrected for Trump. And so I do think, and like, so like, I think a lot of the polling is not good. And people say it looks really good for Trump right now, but I don't think so. I mean, they say it looks like, Harris still has a bit of a lead, but Trump has like, is like closer than he was at like the beginning of the, the bump that happened after the DNC. But I think that, I think things are actually worse. And most of that comes from the fact that, we're hearing more interesting things from canvassers. Like, apparently canvassers are telling a very different story than the polls are. Like, there's a lot of times that there's a lot of people who are reporting that they're not putting up Harris signs, mostly because they're afraid of vandalism. But, like, when you go, like, knocking on door to door, you have to let teachers buy you beer. Good job, Dylan. I agree. Good things. But yeah, so a lot of people who are knocking door to door are apparently experiencing a lot of support for. There's a lot of Harris support apparently when you go door to door, and there's a lot of people who are in red counties who are like voting for Harris who don't want to say publicly because they're worried they're going to get in trouble. You don't think it's going to be like we want to put a gay character in Dora, but we might get arrested? No, not really. That's like a pretty blatant violation of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Like, it's not going to be like they're going to make the woke police, like they're going to make the fucking American version of the Saudi Arabian morality police who are going to like show up and like arrest people for being woke. It's more that they're going to be like, if there's going to be a sort of effect like you're talking about where like there's going to be lower representation of characters in TV, it's more going to be like media creators are going to be afraid that they are going to have like that they're they're going to be threatened, or they're going to be like harassed or something like that by people, and that the government's just not going to do anything about it. Which polls keep showing under 30 leaning Trump when in 2022 midterms under 25 voted 80% Democrat? Again, like I said, it's the polling, it's the poll weights, and like it's not lining up with the experience on the ground. Like so like this is the thing. So this is the couple of reasons that I'm a little bit more optimistic than you're kind of pointing out here. One, basically my whole thing is like polls are basically not the thing that I really want to be looking at, because I think that if 2016 taught us anything, it's that they're very unreliable. The way that polling works as a science involves to decrease margins of error using previous polls and precedents set by previous elections as a way to weigh numbers in order to make predictions stronger. And the thing is that the problem is that it's really just hard to get people to do polls. And there's no way to really collect data for polls that isn't going to make a lot of... it's really going to like there's not really a lot of ways to do polls that either aren't very easy to exploit or are very easy or are going to be collected improperly and result in like a lot of issues. Like, if you do an online poll, I don't know if you followed up on this, but like every time an online poll comes out, basically Trump supporters like literally like get everybody to go out and fill them like 20 or 30 times so that every poll looks like it's a blowout for Trump. The other one that people are using is the betting market, because they think that people putting their money down on things is going to be like, as a bet is going to result in more accurate results. While like, Trump supporters are people like the website that manages that betting pool is run by fucking Peter Thiel. And like there are people who want Trump to win who have a fuckload of money who are willing to, throw down numbers on there in order to skew the odds. 3, like, a lot of the... So, like, a lot of that stuff's happening. So, the main reason why I have a bit more of an optimistic view about Harris winning the election, and that it's going to not be as close as people think it's going to be, is that is more looking at the kinds of things that in 2016 were the signals that Trump was actually doing a lot better than people thought he was. Like, for example, one of the things that I think was really a big thing that, like, people didn't listen to in 2016 was that, like, Hillary looked like, or Hillary, I should stop. I don't like referring to Hillary Clinton by her first name. I think it's slightly like, why do we do that for her specifically? You know. Anyways, Clinton looked like really ahead in, like, Michigan, and then, like, the canvassers on the ground were like, you need to fucking come to Michigan. We are going to, like, tons of houses and nobody is voting for you. You need to do something. Michigan is looking really bad. And the campaign didn't do anything about it because the polls said things looked good. And we're seeing the opposite now, where 2 things. 1, canvassers are reporting, like, that Harris support is actually a lot deeper than people think it is. And 2, the other thing is that there's our early voting has already started. And while you don't have, like, you can't get, like, exit polling, officially out after, from early voting, but there is a lot of evidence that that early voting is like that the Harris people, like, the early voting is indicating that Harris people are coming out in way bigger numbers than we thought. So I actually do think that that Harris actually could, that it could actually be, like, a not close election. Like, we could see, like, a reverse 2016, where we're actually kind of surprised by the results. And so, yeah, like, the thing is, like, I know that, like, people like numbers and polls and stats and stuff like that, but really, like, I've worked now in a lot of elections, and, like, in many ways, you gotta trust your gut on not your gut, but you have to, like, instead of looking at polls, you have to look at things on the ground, and canvassers can give you a lot more useful information than you can in a lot of other places. And so, yeah, if there is a bigger issue, it's that if it is close, like, really close, that Trump is going to do a lot more challenges to the election, and like, the scenario that Trump actually wins, I think, is most likely is going to be like 2000, where a Republican state manages to make, like, the recount process be so fucking logjammed and fucked up that it ends up before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court just unilaterally decides that Trump won the election even though they didn't. Like what happened in Florida in 2000, where the person who lost the Electoral College still got to be president. But yeah. It's, anybody who's worked in canvassing will know that, like, this is the more thing. But, I mean, obviously I could be, like, eating shit in a few weeks. But this is sort of, this is what I'm hearing from, people who, like, from, like, the kinds of stuff that I think is more reliable than polling. Because it does seem like Trump support is really weak. And then you start seeing, and also the thing is that, like, some Trump supporters also know that momentum is the only thing that, like, that they, like, thrive on. And I gotta say, it can't be really good for the enthusiasm of the base of the Republican Party to see, their candidate sort of, like, his brain go blank and for him to stand for, like, half an hour just kind of swaying and dancing. Like, that can't be a good look. that's not a strong, powerful leader that they were going for, you know? And the other thing, too, is that, yes, Donald Trump has, like, you know, is ready to, like, fuck over this election with, like, all the kind of stuff they did in 2020. And it's poised to be the most litigated election in history. But there's some other things, too, which is that the Democrats have been also, like, the Democrats also saw the 2020 election. And on the ground, they are, like, they have been preparing for it. So, like, the Democrats also have, like, an army of lawyers who are ready to defend these things. And a lot of states that that were going, that, like a lot of states that were preparing to have, like, you know, that were, like, kind of the hot spots in 2020 have, like, added new laws on the books. And these laws are mostly to stop, like, rogue counties from, like, refusing to certify their results because a Trump-supporting county, you know, elections clerk refuses to do it. Like, they've put in a bunch of little things to get around that. And on top of that, in 2022, a bunch of people who ran for, like, election commissioner on the sort of, like, I'm denying the 2020 election, I'm going to do it. Apparently, a lot of them lost. Actually, I think all of them lost. So, now, you know, I won't tell people what to or not to do with their lives, but that is because, you know, Harris winning is you know, it doesn't solve a lot of problems. Harris has shown that there's, like, you know, I think that you don't have to, like, you know, look too much on the internet to realize that Harris is not going to be the fucking squeaky clean perfect candidate, that's for sure. And that as president, she's going to be, like, maybe, like, there's a couple things. She might be, like, one of the more left, like, I kind of said a few weeks ago, and I'm not entirely outside of this, that at least on domestic shit, that she's going to be, like, as president, she might be one of the, she's not going to be a progressive, obviously, but she has a history that implies that if, like, enough momentum were to build for something like a Medicare for all, she would not be, like, a person who would try to block that, if that makes sense. Like, I think that if, like, you know, the right situation was placed in front of her, she would sign some good things. The only problem is that she's still, like, she still seems to be, some poll or something seems to have her utterly convinced that she has to not say anything about fucking Israel and the fucking destruction of Palestine that's happening right now. But, you know, I don't know what the hell's going on in Democrat land that makes them so sure that this is a winning thing, but yeah. And yeah, the other thing too is that Trump is, like, canceling a bunch of interviews and stuff. I forgot about that. Yeah, Trump's, like, he's like canceling. He canceled an opportunity for a debate on Fox News, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, he declined doing 60 Minutes, which would have been a huge, you know, thing to, like, make his case for the presidency of the country. Like, yeah, I think that I imagine that the Republicans' internal polling doesn't look good, and Trump is, like, losing momentum. He's losing energy. Like, I think that things look bad, and Trump is sort of, like, and Trump is sort of slowing down as a result. The other thing, too, is that I think that there's another thing. I think I talked about this in the last stream, but I can bring it up, which is that, like, apparently there's also an issue where after the assassination attempt in Philadelphia, or was it Philadelphia or Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania. After the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, apparently, the one with the ear, you know? After that, I think that, like, after that, I think that, it seems like, anyways, reports are that Trump is, like, maybe not handling that well. Like, coming that close to dying, he might be, like, you know, he wouldn't admit this because, you know, he's Trump, but but there's like some signs that he might be like dealing with some trauma from that, and like some PTSD that like is resulting in, because he's not acknowledging it, is resulting in him apparently being like erratic and like moody more than usual, and like not motivate, like not wanting to go and do events and stuff like that, and like being really paranoid, and like all these kinds of things are like apparently making the campaign like to the point where like they for a decent amount of time were relying on sending out fucking JD Vance to be the face of the campaign, and JD Vance can't look like a normal person despite his best efforts. Like he's so bad at pretending to be a person. He's like, and this is like hard to say, he's almost worse than Ted Cruz. Actually, I'd say he's even worse than Ted Cruz. But like, yeah, nobody, like, I'm not going to buy any of the conspiracy theories about it, but like, so like, I'm not like a Trump shooting truther or whatever, but like, so like, nobody there's nobody who gets so close to being killed that a bullet intended to kill you grazes your ear to the point where like you're bleeding without that really fucking you up, right? Like, yeah. Walz has a better progressive track record than she does. That is true. And you know what? Walz gets to be vice president. So, but also, like, I think I said so in I think I made a video about Kamala Harris like 1,000 years ago, like in 2019 or something like that. But Kamala Harris does, like, her record's not great on every issue. That is 100%. But it is better than most Democratic politicians on some issues. So I don't think that, Harris is going to be, like, the great president that's going to, like, she's not going to be your best friend. She's not going to be your, your parasocial, dear leader. But I think that as a president of the United States, I think that there's stuff. There are some very serious progressive victories that could be won with her that might not have been possible with previous presidents in the last 30 years. And I think that could, we need to stop treating politicians like they're our friends and start going more down the line of what kind of victories can we get these people to bend on, because there's never going to be a president who is 100% your friend, who's going to represent everything that you believe in on every issue. But you have to stop thinking of them as being on your side, and instead think of them as what is this? What can we get out of this person that we couldn't get out of other people? And Harris does have a decent amount of indications in her political record that she has, there's reasonable amount of evidence that she has some progressive instincts that she actively suppresses in the name of she's kind of convinced that you can change things from within, and then sort of, I would argue, overly compromises on her beliefs in order to do that, and kind of maybe gets a little bit too comfortable with the allure of being close to power. But if a thing happened where some pretty decent major progressive victories, if Congress passed it and it was on her desk, she wouldn't veto it. She wouldn't go and bully pulpit to try and stop it. So that's good. I guess that's more than we got now. Look, Biden was a terrible president. Biden had absolutely draconian immigration policies, and has been so lapse on getting Benjamin Netanyahu under control that he's basically letting Israel commit one of the worst war crime sprees in the last 40 years. But there were things that we were able to win on that were big, the climate change bill, that the what's it called, the Inflation Reduction Act or whatever the hell it was called. is was nuts and bolts one of the biggest pieces of climate change legislation in American history. It definitely wasn't perfect. It has a bunch of really stupid shit in order to get Joe Manchin on board, but it was bigger than anything that the Americans had accomplished before, which is impressive. So there's that. Unfortunately, the Senate is likely to be Republican after this election. Is it? So it's this cohort is. This would be the Senate election from the senators who were elected last in 2018, right? So who was in the 2018 election? What Senate? What states are up for election in the Senate right now? Okay. I just want to see a list. What states are up for election right in 20 all right, because the thing is senators serve on 6-year terms, right? And so what happens is that not every state has a Senate election. Every state has 2 senators, and they all serve for 6 terms. So okay, so in some ways it looks bad because of the Senate elections that are up, it does look like it's... Jesus Christ, I don't want predictions. I just want to know what the states are. Is this so hard? Some of these are there's a lot. Okay, come on, just give me a list. I don't want all these things, Ballotpedia. What the hell is this? What is this pish? All right, so now I'm looking at the things. I'll just put it over here. I'll have it. You guys can join in. You guys can see it too. So, all right, nope. There we go. So this is the Senate map of elections. So Washington, be pretty. So there are more Democratic states up for grabs than Republican ones. That's 100% for sure. Also, West Virginia, a lot of these states, Maine, be pretty. I feel like independent. Bernie Sanders, for example. Is Bernie Sanders running again? I guess I haven't even checked on that. Yeah, so Bernie's running for election he is running for Senate. So Bernie's fucking Vermont loves Bernie, so that's a shoo-in. And so you got Vermont, look at these, Indiana is a pretty solid Republican state. There's not a whole lot of Democratic, I don't know how much the Arizona race is looking, but I don't know if Kyrsten Sinema is going to, it'd be interesting to see. I'm curious to see how that one turns out, because if Sinema is the only losses you see are Montana and West Virginia. And honestly, I don't know. West Virginia, Joe Manchin has a pretty strong hold on West Virginia, and even though he's apparently an independent now, which I didn't know, him being right up. But yeah, California's up because Dianne Feinstein died, so they have to get a new California senator. But it's pretty. I imagine that California is a pretty safe bet that it's going to be a Democrat again. Texas, Ted Cruz will probably get reelected. Rick Scott, there's not a lot of states that are Montana, maybe Arizona could be interesting, but for the most part, I don't see. Honestly, looking at this, I don't see the Senate changing that much. You'd think Virginia could switch, but Tim Kaine is a pretty big deal, and Virginia is people don't realize that Virginia has very quickly turned into a state that is mostly DC suburb stuff and like, university towns and stuff. Like Virginia is not the sort of like southern state, like the sort of, rural southern state that a lot of people think it is. Oh, is Manchin not running again? Okay. Sinema isn't running, she's retiring? Okay. So, West Virginia is Republican. Okay. So that makes sense. So West Virginia going... Honestly, given how Kyrsten Sinema was such a fucking obstruction, I do wonder if, like, even if, a Republican takes West Virginia, if a Democrat gets Arizona, then it's kind of... You can kind of consider it a win. Blexus, Blue Tob, Below. Yeah. Blue Texas is the cold fusion of politics in a lot of ways. I think it'll happen, but and like there were some people who were thinking that every time a candidate is doing really poorly, it's like always like, oh, is this the one? Is Texas finally going to vote Democrat? But I don't think we're quite there yet. I don't think. I'm just looking at it like, yeah, Arizona looks like the Democrats are going to win. Like Indiana's like a solid red state now. It's not 2008 anymore. Like New Mexico is a pretty solid Democratic state. Like I don't like Ted Cruz. Like I don't know. Like I mean, I don't know why Texans would do it, but Ted Cruz does seem to be. It's like when I find out Kentucky kept re-electing freaking what's his name? That guy who's also retiring. The freaking the Turtle Man. So, tax it when though. Can't constitutionally. After the Civil War, I think they have a thing saying that you can't leave the United States. Texas can't leave the United States, but the only thing it can do is it can split into 5 different states if it so desires. Which, if it wanted to, it could, and it would add a whole lot more like Republican, like solid Republican senators to the thing. But that's still like that would be ridiculous. Like I don't think anyone would do that. Ted Cruz isn't well liked, so he could lose. I don't know. It seems like it does seem like he's still poised to win. So I'm Ted Cruz. But yeah, I don't know. The Senate, like it doesn't look like that. It doesn't like. Maybe I'm dumb, but there's not a lot of states on this list that look like they could like really tip the balance of the Senate. But the Senate balance is also really tight right now too, isn't it? So there is that. According to Ballotpedia, which I have no idea how good that is, Ohio is considered a toss-up. So, But yeah. Tied Senate, or at least close. And the thing is, a tied Senate with fucking Walsey Boy as our as the tiebreaker is not a bad setup either. I mean, it prevents the supermajority, but there's no chance no chance the Democrats are ever getting a fucking supermajority in the current like structure of the U.S. federal government at the moment. So I don't know. This election is not like. I think that this election is being made out to be a lot more tense than it is, or not. Like not okay. I shouldn't understand that. I feel like that's me decatastrophizing. I think that it's just like every election for the last like 8 years has, or like since like the 2016 election, has been so fucking traumatizing that that everyone is very much convinced that like the weight of the world is on every election. I'm like, this election, I don't like. I don't think it's as like close as people think it is. That's the main bit. That's my takeaway. That's my opinion. Like, this isn't like 2012, which was a bit of a blowout, but like, I don't like after that, like the idea of like after like losing in 2020 and like just not bringing his A game and just like his base, like Trump's base. I don't think like I think that like we can really say like I think like a lot of Trump's base, like a lot more than we think, died. Like, I think that because they were either very old or because they didn't do anything about COVID restrictions, like, I think a lot more of them died than we think. So it's really like whether or not Trump does well in like the sort of handful of battleground states, and like Florida he's doing all right in. I think he's still going to win Florida, but like I don't think Pennsylvania. Like I don't think there's I don't know. Like I'm not nearly as optimistic as or I'm not nearly as pessimistic about the results as I think. I think that this is going to be I maybe this is my like thing. I think that Trump is done. I think that he knows he's done. Like, I think he's kind of throwing in the towel already. He's already acting so defeatist. He's not doing interviews. He's being sulky about it. I don't think it's going to look good. Like, keep in mind, like, pollsters and horse race people, like the media, is going to want to portray this as a tight race the entire time because that'll get more people watching the news. But, like, I don't know. I live in a country that doesn't have that kind of politics. And so to me, it's like, this election looks pretty much like Harris is going to, like, maybe I'll be eating my words in a few weeks, but I think that Harris is is fairly likely to win at this point. This, but you know, cool. Some people are talking about the Electoral College, and I said I would say that I don't think that like banishing the Electoral College the way that you think about, like the way that it's talked about, is the way that the Electoral College will end. Unfortunately, I think that given how fucking stupid American politics is, the Electoral College is only going to end if the Interstate Compact can get itself past 270 EVs. I don't know when that's ever going to happen, but if that ever works, and like if we can get that, if that can work out, then I think that that's the only way that like that's the way that that America gets like the presidential election it wants. For anyone who doesn't know, the Interstate Compact is this initiative / like deal that a surprisingly large amount of states have signed on to, where basically these states have agreed. See, the thing is, if you don't like, if your state votes for a certain candidate, the what you're voting for is for your, like, every state gets a handful of electors, and basically the result of the election means that those electors go to Washington and they have to vote for the person that the state voted for, or they have to pay like a $1,000 fine or something like that. And there have been rogue voters many times in history. Like, very often, if an election is already decided, some people will intentionally rogue vote for like various things to kind of make a statement. But like, what happened is that the Interstate Compact is a group of states that have agreed that they will go rogue and they will vote that their delegates will vote for whoever won the popular vote. And at some point in the not too distant future, I think that that's like Like if they have a lot of states on, but they need enough states to get to 270 electoral college votes so that they can decide, they would have the deciding vote on any election. And they're not quite there yet, but they're working on it. The idea that banning booze got an amendment passed, but this won't. Hey, America was a very different place in 1919 than today. Do you ever wish we could just not worry about the U.S.? Yes. Yes, I wish. I do wish that there was not one country that dictated everything for everyone. Oh, man. So, yeah. But yeah, that's the way that you get rid of the Electoral College without the... Never have I cared less about the outcome of a U.S. election. I mean, like, again... unfortunately, it's being, and this is not me saying that this is like a distraction. I do think that it should be the thing that we should be pressuring people on. But like the genocide that's happening in Gaza has really made any sort of like discussion about Harris's presidency tough to discuss. I do think though that as I kind of mentioned earlier in the stream, that there are some serious, like some big progressive victories that that Harris as president could, like if we were able to get it in front of her desk, could really make a difference. Whether or not she'll use the bully pulpit to get that kind of stuff passed, we'll see. But that's another thing. Canada's going hard right these days. I'm scared for real. Yeah, or scared right now. Yeah, that is definitely a weird thing that's happening in our country. I will say the other weird thing that's also kind of attached to that is like, and I don't know, maybe the Americans don't know about this, but like one of the big things that's happening here in Canada over the last few days is that it's becoming increasingly apparent that our Conservative Party is basically run by the Indian government. So maybe I don't have as many details as I probably should because there's a lot of stuff that's like not public and stuff. But like so you guys know, because I don't know how if Americans don't get any news about Canada, so they don't know what's going on here probably, unless they're nerds about the news. But India fucking assassinated a Canadian citizen in Canada. There's a whole thing because there are kind of like like Jamal Khashoggi, the sort of like Saudi, like the Arabian dissident who was living in Turkey or whatever, who got like fucking dismembered by the Saudis in the freaking embassy or whatever. Canada actually has like a bunch of with India. Like Canada has there's like a movement in India of Sikh nationalists, like Sikhs who want to separate the Punjab region from India, and they're typically they're of the Sikh religion, which is another. I don't know if like there's a lot of Sikhs in Canada, but I don't know if there's a lot in America enough that a lot of Americans know what Sikhism is, but so there's a lot of like Sikh nationalists where like their leaders, because it's not safe in India, live in Canada. Or not a lot. There are a few. And one of them got fucking killed. Got assassinated by the Indians, by like the Indian Secret Service or whatever, in Canada. And like we knew it happened. And it's led to like some really there's been like a tense diplomatic standoff now between Canada and India. India withdrew its we withdrew our diplomats, they withdrew their diplomats. It's like a whole thing. Like there's like a real there's a genuine diplomatic incident happening right now between Canada and India, and India is like fucking pissed. They just released they released an official letter shit talking Justin Trudeau. And the thing is, even though a Canadian citizen was fucking assassinated in Canada by the Indian government, a Canadian citizen, the leader of our Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, has been like attacking Trudeau for this and basically putting like absolutely no. Wasn't he a terrorist? Listen, terrorism is a loaded term. I'm not going to get into the details of what is or is not terrorism, but I will say that it was a Canadian citizen who got killed by the Indian government on Canadian soil. That is, I think that at the end of the day, that's the main shit you need to know. But yeah, so Pierre Poilievre is only attacking Justin Trudeau and hasn't said anything about the fact that India did this. And another thing that's happening is that there's been this ongoing set of revelations that CSIS, which is sort of like the Canadian version of the CIA, that CSIS has been basically uncovering this whole thing that is showing, like, there was like this whole idea of like there's foreign interference in Canadian politics, and everybody was like, oh, this is China. China is like has like is intervening in our politics, and I think they found like maybe like one guy who had like very tenuous connections or something, but it wasn't like. And then what it turns out, as like more details came out, is that it's fucking like Modi. It's India, and India has been actively intervening in Canadian politics. Specifically, India has been actively working to influence the Canadian Conservative Party. And they have like the names of like the sort of Conservative Party, operatives, MPs. Like apparently they have like a list of the people who they believe are being influenced by the Indian government. And they want to tell the Conservative Party about these people, but they can't. And the reason is that Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, doesn't have security clearance. He doesn't have top secret security clearance. Justin Trudeau has it. Jagmeet Singh, the sort of the leader of the NDP, the third biggest party, he has it. But the second largest party doesn't. And he doesn't want it. And there are two reasons why this, or he says he doesn't want it. And there are two possible reasons why this is the case, and neither of them are good for him. Which is, one, if you do get CSIS security clearance, there is a possibility that you might be held more accountable for the things that you say in public. Because, if you're going to get CSIS security reports on, threats to the government and like all that, the kind of stuff that like, having top secret clearance in like America would probably like, when you accept that you're going to have top secret clearance in the United States, you kind of agree that you are curtailing your right to free speech a little bit, right? But Pierre Poilievre is is basically saying like, oh well, the two options are, one, he is so invested in his entire political strategy being based around lying that he doesn't want to get security clearance so that he can he doesn't have to be beholden to these laws that say that you can't just like straight up lie about things and have top secret security clearance. Which makes sense because Pierre Poilievre's entire like political strategy is basically to just lie constantly. Or the other option is that he doesn't want to know because he wants plausible deniability because he kind of knows. And part of that is that there was some talk, like from the scant details that we do have about things from CSIS, that what happened is that the Indians were involved in manipulating specifically the leadership race of the Conservative Party. And if there's anybody who, if you, I mean, this is Canadian party leadership race politics. So like the absolute bottom tier of politics. So it makes sense if nobody followed it. But the last Conservative leadership race was actually kind of weird. And Pierre Poilievre came into power very surprisingly. Like he kind of like, there was like a whole bunch of people who were running, and he kind of got the leadership kind of out of the blue. It was a bit of a surprise. And so, you know, the other aspect is possible that you know, Pierre Poilievre knows that like basically like the Indians manipulated Conservative Party politics so that he could win, because they want, I mean, they have a few policy goals for Canada. They want Canada to be more pro-Israel. They want Canada to be more racist against brown people, so that we are less likely to protect those Khalistani, like, you know, nationalists, and that we're more willing, kind of like with Turkey, to like, you know, sell out and hand over our like Sikh nationalists to India, because they don't like that part of our country. And they also want like you thought he just got it by pandering to the convoy crowd. The thing is that Pierre Poilievre ran against fucking Maxime Bernier. And there's no pandering to the convoy crowd harder than Maxime Bernier. Maxime Bernier started the PPC because he lost the leadership race for the Conservative Party. He also was running against Kelly Leach, if you remember her, who was an absolute fucking psychopath. Yeah. Ironically, while putting Indian Canadians at risk. Yeah, that's the thing, is that like India, like one of the things about India and Canada is that India doesn't like that Canada has become a source of India's brain drain. Because there is like a thing where like educated Indians are leaving India, and one of the countries that they're going to is Canada. The other thing too is that another group of people that like is that a lot of people from the Punjab region are moving to Canada. There's a lot of people who are Punjabis, specifically a lot of Sikhs who are moving to Canada. And Sikhs are kind of considered a, like, you know, because of the Khalistani nationalists, like they're sort of like the Khalistani nationalists are also like you know, like the Indians want to, like, you know, stamp out that movement. And so there's a lot of reasons why India doesn't really has like a lot of like axes to grind against Canada, and wants to influence our politics. And they apparently found an easy target to do so through the election. Okay, I'm getting my leadership races mixed up then, Matt. But I do remember that. But either way, it's pretty. It does seem that at least that the Indian government was somewhat, maybe at least. There's obviously not enough information from CSIS to really. CSIS is so afraid of making some like big bold accusations that Pierre Poilievre might have, like, the Indians might have put him in power so that he can, you know, become prime minister and do things that the Indian government wants. So there is that. All right. It is 9:30. Tristan needs to do everything. I haven't done any chores or anything. Like, I haven't done the dishes or anything. So I'm going to call it a night. But this has been a really good stream. I'm going to try to do another one next month. I have like a little task so that once a month I try to organize a new stream. But as I mentioned, there should be a new Step Back video in early November. If not November 1st, I'll have to see. But I have a new video. It is edited. I need to make the sponsorship and stuff for it, and it'll be out for patrons as soon as... I don't want to overpromise, but it could be out for patrons / Nebula as soon as this weekend. And for the general public, it'll be out probably in early November, depending on like sponsorships and stuff. Because I do have a sponsor for a November video, and so I can just set it up with that. But yeah, and I also have two more videos in different levels of development also. Somebody also asked about It's Probably Not Aliens. It's Probably Not Aliens season premiere is going to be on Tuesday for people on Nebula / Patreon, and it's going to be coming out on it'll be what's it called? The first episode of the new season will be coming out on the 29th for everybody else. And we're already working with trying to get some editors and stuff in so that we can get the whole season finished. So It's Probably Not Aliens is coming out in a couple weeks, next week for some people. So if you give me money, there's gonna be new Tristan content like in the next few days. And if you don't give me money, then in the next few weeks. That's the best way to say it. All right. You guys have been great. Love you all. I'm still alive. I'm still doing this. I'm not dead yet. That's a copy of Tales from the Loop. And you guys have a great night.